Hey, again, it's Dren here talking about music. I just released this guitar orchestra piece called D Part 1. It's the second piece in this release of 6 songs that is guitar orchestra-like. I tried to make a guitar orchestra with hundreds and hundreds of tracks. I'll put a link here or over here to the music video that I made for this piece. It's also mixed in Atmos on Apple Music and Tidal. Otherwise, you can listen also on Spotify, Bandcamp, the usual places. First, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that I use for this. Guitars. Let's talk guitars. One of the main guitars I used on this was this Larrivee LV5, my trusty nylon string. This is a Takamine, Japanese nylon string guitar that I've had since the 80s. I've used this on Gunman Taco Truck. I've used this, I used this on the Polyhedren record. I've used this on a lot of different things. And the other acoustic I used a lot on this was this Martin 00015. You can see it even looks a lot different than the other guitars. It's a different type of wood. I don't know if it's mahogany or what. I think it's mahogany. It smells like a tobacco box, like a cigar box. It's a little brighter than the other guitars. So those are the main 3 guitars. I did use ukuleles. I used a 12-string I have over there. I used some electric guitars, and I used a lot of microphones. So let's look at the microphones. So we've got this, what is this, vintage V11 from Z Microphones, I think. JZ. Seems strange because as I say it, I'm only thinking of the hip-hop guy. I also use the same company, has this one called the Violet Amethyst. The Amethyst. Cardioid kind of has a little bit of a 67 kind of vibe to it. So I use this quite a bit, especially on close miking stuff. I use the trusty Lewitt 640. I use it on all its different patterns: cardioid, hypercardioid, figure 8, and omnidirectional. So I use this one quite a bit. I also use the Octava a bit, the MK012. That comes with, well, I have a fancy little box for them. It's pretty nice. All the different polar patterns. So, and it's also got a pad. I didn't need the pad for all acoustic guitars, but this is, I have just dropped the cardioid pattern. So, Octava, these have been modded. I had these modded pair. Sound pretty nice. This one I used quite a bit. Neumann 84 or 184. I always get it mixed up which one it is. It's the new one, 184. Neumann 184. Terrific sounding mic. And I use this big thing, if you remember these. This is a CAD, and this is like their first serious microphone, I think. Equitech E200, also multi-pattern microphone. Some of the ones that have omnidirectional I would use as a farm mic. Oh yeah, I had different miking distances I used in this setup, both recording in here and up in my dining room. I'll show you that now. Far mic position, middle mic position, close mic position, guitar. Far mic position, middle mic position, close mic position, guitar. So I used all these tools and all these techniques basically to create, like I said, a guitar orchestra. Those roles that certain instruments play in an orchestra, I was trying to give those roles to the guitar. And it just seemed like a fun thing to do. And the more I got into it, the more techniques I started to try. So what I'm gonna do is show you my Logic session now. Okay, so here's the session. There's a lot of tracks. That's what I wanted to show you first. But starting here, if I go all the way down, I'm going down quite a bit. Look, we're at 400, 500, all the way down to 652. So 652 tracks. Obviously, they're not all playing at the same time. I'm mixing a lot at once, but it's not 650 tracks worth. Okay, so I'll make these a little bit bigger and we can see what's going on here. Okay, let's start with these parts here. A high ACAG thing into ST. Okay, so I make notes for myself through here. That means the high A, these are the notes, I, A, and C, and then acoustic guitar thing, intro, stereo. Well, we'll hear this. And this track stack is just these notes. So what I'll point out here is that we've got 12-string guitar with a close, a mid, and a far, like you saw in the previous little bits. And those were all 12 strings. So this one was a 12-string version. I believe that there is another version of it. So this was the Larrivee, our LRV, close, mid, and far. Mid 11, I think, means I was using the 11, V11 as the microphone there. I don't know what 12 means here. All right, so then close, mid, and far for the Martin guitar. I bet that is also the nylon string, but I forgot to name it. Yeah, that's the nylon string guitar. So this is a pretty common way that I would set this up. We'd have a similar part, and then I'd cover it 3 times on 3 different guitars with 3 different mic positions. So it basically gives us 9 tracks. So if we move over to this section, we've got another track stack. Yeah, parts like this, I would put a lot of guitars on. So I think that's what we also have here. And probably here. Double stops. And then let's see, if we turn this off. Okay, so when we get to this part, check this out here. All right, I think this is where I want to start. We've got these builds. Now I've got a high version of them. And let's listen to that just by itself. Well, hear it in context. So, just the high part. So I just wanted to build up the end of the phrase. So if we look down here, I think I've got another version of those double stops. I've got the builds low here on a 12 string. So think of it like a Divisi section. You've got part of the violins, part of the violas, and the cellos all kind of doing this build together, where the other instruments in those sections might be doing something else. So maybe you've got 4 live violins, 2 violas, and 2 cellos doing this, and all the other strings are doing something a little different. That's kind of how I was thinking about these guitar parts, splitting them up into sections like that. You can kind of tell by the shape of the waveforms what's going on. And then I think that's all of these crescendo sections. But this is only a small part of the song where this is happening. Now here, I did use some ukuleles, so you can hear some of those. They were just nylon strings, so I thought it would fit in. Really simple parts, obviously. And in the scheme of things, you don't really hear them that much. And that's sort of a theme in creating this kind of weird idea that I did. Here's another uke track. So that theme being that you're going to create a lot of parts within that arrangement that aren't going to be front and center and forward and heard. As you're recording the parts, they're so quiet or they seem so non-important that you think that this isn't going to be important to the grand scheme. It's going to be featured. These parts are going to be kind of hidden in the arrangement. Why are they important? Then you're not seeing the forest through the trees. Adding all these parts together is what makes this different. By adding these parts that you might not be able to pick out. Sometimes you can pick them out, sometimes you can't, but is it worth it? I don't know. You can decide. I think it was. I enjoyed doing this. I'm going to look for another little part here that really exemplifies what I'm talking about. Okay, I think we've got these parts here that are really quiet. Okay, so here's a part that you really can't hear when you're listening to the recording, but it's one of those parts that helps build everything out and make it feel like it's a bigger piece. So not the most exciting part, not a very loud part, but if you play it with the track. So you hear it in there. If I take it out, it's going to be kind of obvious that it's gone. Put it back in. So that's just the point I'm trying to make. You might come up with some really very simple parts that seem to not occupy a whole lot of space within the mix, but you add them up and they start to make a difference. Okay, so I wanted to talk about some of the weird guitar parts that might not seem obvious. So these are the Aeon parts. Aeon is this little device here. It's very similar to this little device over here, the EBow. I have EBow, I have the Aeon. I like the Aeon a little better. So that's what this is. This is the Aeon being used with the Music Man guitar. So those are electric. And essentially what I was doing, I'll show you. You just turn these on and it's a magnetic thing that just excites the guitar string. So that's the idea. That's what I was doing with this. They're working anything with a metal string, I think. So one of the things I wanted to talk about here were double stops. I didn't actually strum any chords for any of these recordings. I felt like that was cheating. We do have double stops, however. And every time I had double stops in the pieces, I was using my fingers to play them. And it may sound familiar to you. This is something we've all probably heard in AC/DC. Just taking my middle two fingers and just kind of pulling on the strings like that. Double stops, it's as close as I get to playing a chord in any of this album, and using my middle two fingers, I ended up getting a lot of blisters. Well, there you have it. How I kind of was creating a guitar orchestra kind of track. I did 6 of them, and the album is coming out all in April. This was the second one to come out. It's a little bit ridiculous. Like, it's not very efficient to make an album or to make a song with 650 guitar tracks in it. But it was what I was trying to do. This is how I did it. These videos are really just kind of about taking these crazy creative ideas that we might have and finding a technical way to make them happen. I actually can't wait to do it again. I want to try it in a bigger recording space. I want to try it with other guitar players. I want to try a bunch of different ways to approach this idea. I don't think I'm done with this approach yet. But I am probably done with recording it in my little room in my dining room. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks. See you next time.